Music listening and lowering blood pressure to reduce stroke risk. Number 1441, November 18, 2025. Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation. Category: Stroke. Preface. My hemorrhagic stroke on June 21, 2025 was caused by a rupture of micro-vessels in the pons area. These vessels had become calcified over 36 years of diabetes, and were then triggered to break by an acute spike of hypertension at 175 mmHg on that day. The hypertension itself was driven by emotional stress, related to a business investment issue. Through my own stroke research, I have identified that about 91% of my cerebral vascular calcifications were formed during the 20-year period from 1990 to 2009, while I was relying solely on diabetes medications, and these calcifications cannot be reversed. However, during the following 16 years from 2010 to 2025, through strict lifestyle management and without using any medications, I was able to reduce the diabetes-related contribution to my stroke risk down to about 9%. My blood pressure records over the past 15 years have never shown a chronic hypertension pattern, always below 150 mmHg. Based on my medical research, I have reached a clear and important conclusion. I must avoid letting my systolic blood pressure, SBP, rise above 150 mmHg under any circumstance. The commonly used statistically average daily BP values have no meaning in my case, because my stroke risk comes from a single acute spike. To prevent a second stroke, I must avoid even one event of systolic BP going beyond 150 mmHg. During the past 4.5 months after June 28, 2025, 143 days, I have measured my BP 2,288 times, averaging about 16 times per day. Each measurement includes SBP, DBP, HR, PP, and MAP, producing a total dataset of 11,400 data points. Among these, there are 2,288 SBP values, 20%. Only 10 of them, 0.44%, were within the range of 140 to 149 mmHg. Based on this analysis, I define my stroke risk zones as follows. My risk begins only when SBP passes above 140 mmHg. The range of 140 to 150 mmHg is my warning zone, and any value above 150 mmHg is my danger zone. Pathophysiological explanations of why music can soothe stress. Music is not magic. It calms stress because it changes specific functions inside the brain and the body. First, music slows down the fight or flight system. Under stress, the body increases heart rate, breathing, and muscle tension. Slow and gentle music activates the rest and recovery system, instead lowering heart rate, breathing rate, and blood pressure. Second, music reduces stress hormones. During pressure, the brain signals the adrenal glands to release cortisol. High cortisol produces anxiety and poor sleep. Calming music weakens this signal, so cortisol drops and the body relaxes. Third, music quiets the fear center of the brain, the amygdala. When stress is high, the amygdala becomes overactive. Gentle music reduces this activity, lowering fear and emotional tension. Fourth, music increases natural feel-good chemicals such as dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and oxytocin. These chemicals create pleasure, calmness, comfort, and pain relief, which together reduce overall stress. Music also slows down brain wave activity. Stress makes the brain run fast and noisy. Slow rhythms help the brain shift into calmer patterns, improving clarity and reducing mental pressure. Music reactivates the frontal lobe, the area responsible for planning and emotional control. When stress shuts this area down, music helps restore stability and clear thinking. Music also reduces pain because pain and stress share similar brain pathways. Less pain means less stress. Music and blood pressure. These stress-reducing effects directly lower blood pressure. When music relaxes the nervous system, reduces cortisol, slows breathing, and widens peripheral blood vessels, the force and resistance inside the arteries decrease. This leads to lower systolic BP, lower diastolic BP, and a smaller pulse pressure load, which is especially important for preventing stroke from vessel stiffness. People often breathe in rhythm with slower music, which stabilizes heart rhythm and lowers blood pressure. In summary, music reduces stress by calming the body, lowering stress hormones, quieting the fear center, increasing positive chemicals, slowing brain activity, improving thinking control, reducing pain, and slowing breathing. These same mechanisms also produce a measurable drop in blood pressure, even within a short from 10 to 30 minute period. Other background information regarding music listening. Recently, I purchased a pair of Shokz earphones to replace my Apple AirPods. The differences are simple. Traditional earphones, sound travels through the ear canal and hits the eardrum. The ears are blocked, outside sounds are reduced, and sound quality is richer. But this can create ear pressure or fatigue. For some people, This isolation may increase stress. Shocks bone conduction earphones. Sound travels through small vibrations on the cheek or temple bones. The ears stay open, the eardrums are bypassed, and I can hear both music and my surroundings. This reduces ear pressure and often feels more relaxing for longer periods. Simple summary: shocks keeps the ears open and reduces ear fatigue, which may lower stress. Traditional earphones offer richer sound but can feel more isolating or intense. VPT data preparation. This article tries to quantify how much music listening can relax me and lower my systolic blood pressure, SBP. Since my intensive BP data collection after my stroke, hospitalization covers only a 142-day period, June 28, 2025 through November 17, 2025, I could not perform a long-term study. Therefore, I compared two identical 30-minute periods, each with 6 blood pressure measurements taken every 5 minutes. The first case is immediately after a stressful event. The second case is during continuous music listening for 30 minutes, while still measuring BP on the same schedule. To ensure both cases start from the same baseline, I artificially created a P0 period with healthy standard input and output values, strain level at 100, corresponding to SBP at 130 mmHg, and 3 normalization factors defined as SBP at 130 mmHg, DBP at 80 mmHg, and PP at 45 mmHg. This artificial P0 removes bias and aligns with good laboratory practice. Therefore, the full timeline includes P0 through P6, which makes a total of 7 time periods. After building my dataset, I performed 2 analyses. The first uses viscoplastic energy modeling, VMT, and the second uses topology data analysis, TDA. By combining these 2 methods, I created a term for this integrated approach, which I call viscoplastopology, VPT, viscoplastic energy results. In this study, I compare only the numerical VMT outputs, without including the VMT graphics. Based on my calculations, the ratios between the stressful case and the music listening case are: VMT energy is 109%, SBP stress level and SBP is 121%, DBP is 124%, PP is 117%. These results show that my SBP during the stressful period was 21% higher than during the music listening period. DBP and PP were also higher by 24% and 17%. However, when these 3 pressure components interact through the VMT energy model, the total cumulative energy rises by only 9%. This means that even though the pressure spikes under stress are noticeable, the overall physiological burden measured by VMT energy stays relatively lower when I listen to music. In other words, music listening does calm me down, reduces my blood pressure, and lowers my cumulative strain. TDA analysis results. For this short experiment, I applied topology data analysis, TDA, to the same dataset used for the VMT calculations. Each 5-minute period from P0 to P6 is represented as a single point in a 4-dimensional space, with the following coordinates: stress level number, SBP, DBP, and PP. I created 2 separate 4D clouds of points, one for the stressful case and one for the music listening case, and then examined their geometric patterns, trajectories, and separation. First, I looked at the internal geometry of each case. In the stressful case, the 7 points move away from the baseline, P0, and stay in a high pressure region. Stress number jumps from 100 to values between 102 and 112. SBP remains above 1.02, DBP rises up to 1.21, and PP stays between 1.00 and 1.31. In 4D space, this produces a short, but zigzagging trajectory that wanders inside a high-stress zone without a clear return path toward the baseline. The path length of this stressful trajectory is about 2.6 times longer than the music listening trajectory, which indicates more fluctuation and instability inside that high-pressure region. In contrast, the music listening case forms a very different shape. After the same starting point P0, the 7 points move almost monotonically downward in all coordinates. Stress number gradually falls from 100 to 84. SBP and DBP drop from 1.00 to about 0.84, and PP declines from 1.11 to 0.93. In 4D space, these points lie very close to a straight one-dimensional line. This means that all 4 variables decompress together in a coordinated and orderly way. TDA shows this as a smooth descending trajectory from the baseline node into a lower stress, lower pressure region without oscillation. Second, I compared the locations of the 2 data point clouds. When I normalized the stress number by 100, the centroid of the stressful trajectory sits about 21% higher in stress number and SBP, about 23% higher in DBP, and about 17% higher in PP than the centroid of the music listening trajectory. In other words, the entire stressful cloud is shifted upward and outward in 4D space, while the music listening cloud is shifted downward and inward. There is only one overlapping point between the two cases, which is the artificial baseline P0 because I use the same initial data for both cases. From P1 to P6, all stressful points remain in a higher pressure domain, and all music points remain in a lower pressure domain. So the two blood pressure stress trajectories become topologically separated. Third, I examine how tightly each trajectory is organized. In the stressful case, the correlations between stress level number and the three pressure components are moderate for dBp and pp, which matches the zigzag pattern in space. In the music listening case, stress number, SBP, dBp, and pp are almost perfectly aligned. They fall together as a single integrated unit. TDA interprets this as a collapse of the 4D cloud onto a thin one-dimensional manifold, which is the geometric signature of a strong, consistent relaxation process, rather than random noise. In plain English, music listening relaxes me and lowers my blood pressure. Fourth, the radar chart's larger polygon shows a geometric area ratio close to 1.09, matching the VMT energy ratio, and confirming that stress creates a higher combined pressure load than music. From a stroke prevention viewpoint, this topology picture is important. The stressful trajectory migrates into a high SBP and high PP region, and then stays there, which moves me closer to my personal warning zone and danger zone for stroke risk. The music trajectory moves in the opposite direction, pulling all pressure components away from the risk zone and into a safer, lower strain region within just 30 minutes. Conclusion. In summary, VMT quantifies that the total cumulative energy during the stressful period is 9% higher, while TDA shows why this happens geometrically. The stressful period generates a scattered, oscillating path that lives in a high-pressure domain. The music listening period generates a smooth, straight, and well-organized descent into a low-pressure domain, with clear topological separation from the stressful state. Together, these VPT findings support the same clinical message. Even a short session of music listening can reshape the geometric pattern of my blood pressure in a favorable direction, and help reduce my future stroke risk. This study directly shows that music lowers these spikes. Even 30 minutes is meaningful because hemorrhagic stroke risk depends on instantaneous peak blood pressure, not daily averages. Disclaimer: I write this paper not for fame, but to share what I have learned so others can understand their health, prevent disease, and live longer, healthier lives. This content is provided for educational reference only, and does not constitute medical or financial advice. No doctor-patient or advisor-client relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C. Shu.